Dragon's Dogma 2. Let's check how good it actually is.
First question I and everybody else had was with regard to the frame rate, because this is the one thing that's been omnipresent in all of the footage. The frame rate's been really all over the place in all of these captures, and up till now, Capcom has just not wanted to talk about it. Well, now, not only do we have testing from IGN, but we also have clear and concise statements from games director on how the game is targeted and what it's set at. As you can see here, Jason Hidalgo from the Reno Gazette-Journal asked very, very directly, will Dragon's Dogma 2 have the option for 60 frames per second on consoles? And the game
on consoles? Wait, is that your big question? Let me answer it instantaneously for you. No. It's a console. It's 20 years old technology at this point, and that's considered modern, okay? Consoles are never running anything in the modern time, okay? The console that is planned to be released in 3 years, the big one, the new Xbox One, or the new PlayStation 1, okay? All of those consoles are gonna be garbage. They're all gonna be released, and the technology is gonna be 5 years old minimum at that point. So the idea that current consoles can run 60 frames per second on any modern game, that the answer is no. The answer is literally always no to that.
Director said will feature uncapped frame rate performance around 30 FPS or above on consoles. For PC, it depends on the specs of the machine, but for consoles, we're aiming for an uncapped frame rate around and above 30 FPS.
Why do people... I don't understand. It's like, dude, it's a console. Are you really that stupid? It's a console. That no one is trying to optimize for consoles because it's a waste of time. If you want 60 FPS, go buy a PC. It's that really simple. I'm not looking down on console fanboys, but I am, and I'm calling you morons. It is what it is, deal with it.
Which is not ideal. For one, 30 FPS is not what a lot of people were hoping for with an action RPG. They were hoping for maybe a performance mode going up to 60. I can live with 30. Some of the best games ever made run at 30 frames per second, whether you look at Red Dead or Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, games like that, Skyrim, all of them, The Witcher 3, they all ran at 30 FPS at launch. And so it's not like totally unacceptable. You can have a great game that runs at 30. However, it's the uncapped part that worries me, because uncapped can sometimes mean that you get 40 frames per second. It can also mean that sometimes you're dipping down into the 20s, and it definitely means that you're bouncing between all of those. And that can be really, really jarring. For me, it makes me motion sick. When I play a game that has...
Oh yeah, it actually is like that. Not the motion sick part. A true man never experiences motion sickness, obviously. It is what it is. But, you know, when your FPS just goes from 0 to 100 and back again and, you know, whatever, yeah, it's annoying. It is really annoying. Because if you're playing something on 20 FPS, and, you know, you don't need actually that much movement, you get used to it and it's fine. Now, obviously, the more FPS, the better. That is the general rule of reality currently. But, hey, you can get used to things like playing something on 30 FPS, 20 FPS or 25 if that doesn't stutter your game and make it seem choppy or laggy. But if the FPS just, you know, is all over the place, wibbly wobbly woobly, then you're gonna hate the game. It's really bad.
Extremely wide ranges of frame rates, sometimes in the 40s or high 30s, and then it dips down into the 20s. That makes...
It doesn't even need to do that. A constant frame change between, for example, 60 and 75-ish is gonna be very noticeable for you when you play.
Me and my brain freak out and want to puke. So for me, this is kind of like a major red flag. See? I didn't have this sitting there.
Or being, you know, 5'6",
for nothing. No, but seriously, for me, it's just something that would probably prevent me from getting this game on console, unfortunately. And IGN actually tested this and shared their results.
How about just not having a console in the first place? Dude, console players are such a minority, by the way, in general. You console players are really loud and obnoxious, but you are the absolute minority. My favorite console warrior comment was, "Oh, look at this idiot making a YouTube channel about gaming and talking about gaming and bad-mouthing the greatest audience that exists. Console players. Us, the majority of existence." You know what happened to that comment? I didn't flame him. People just called him stupid. That's what happened. I'm sorry. If you're a console supremacist, bruv, okay, you need to talk, but I don't know who. Jesus is probably not gonna save you at this point.
And as you can see, they were playing on PlayStation 5, and at times they're in like the mid to low 30s while exploring out in the open world, playing on console. And then at other times, you're going to see them go into combat.
That's actually looking like 33 to 20-ish FPS, by the way.
And the frame rate drops into the mid 20s. Now, again, the game can still be very, very good. People watch movies at 24 FPS.
Oh! I'm looking at this. I'm not looking at this. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
PS all the time and don't have a lot of complaints, but I do think it's just very important you know what you're getting into. I've seen people in like the Dragon's Dogma subreddit
oh, and there's also FPS here. Wow. Yeah, they're okay.
Speculate that maybe there was going to be a
I am stupid
performance mode and they were just waiting to reveal it till later in the marketing cycle or something. But at this point, it seems very clear we're close to launch. People have played the game for multiple hours, and the game director has clarified they're targeting 30, well, specifically what he said is around 30 frames per second and above, and it's uncapped. So sometimes it's going to go higher, sometimes it's going to go lower. I'm not going to make the decision for you. I would heavily recommend, if you can, play the game on PC. If you are fortunate and blessed enough to have a quality gaming PC that could run this game, I think that's definitely the place to go. This is not like an Elden Ring situation where the PS5 and PC performance is kind of up in the air and it's just pick your poison. In this case, it's very clear cut. PC's probably going to be the best way to go. One of the other questions that's come up with the game is whether or not this will be accessible to people who didn't play the original game. As I mentioned at the top, the original game was not played by very many people. It was pretty polarizing. People either loved it and it was basically a cult classic, or
you know the history behind this? The history behind this is actually kind of pretty easy, honestly. Essentially, this was kind of your first Dark Souls before Dark Souls came out and became Dark Souls and known as the Souls-like genre. So, a lot of stuff here was just too complicated and annoying and frustrating for people to deal with back in the day, because we were objectively just so much more stupid now. Fun fact. If you take a 15-year-old, but a 12 or 13-year-old, their current knowledge is the equivalent or superior of a grown adult 200 years ago. Even 100 years ago, honestly, probably fits this description, but yeah. This is how wild it is. And now, well, I wouldn't say kids are smarter, they're stupider, you know. And how do I know that this is true? Well, that's because TikTok challenges have become a natural great filter for children, you know. If you're stupid enough to follow a TikTok trend, you're probably gonna end up dead. And, you know, natural selection, baby, I ain't even sad, honestly, at that point. But, you know, at the time when this came out, we as kids were way too stupid to actually handle something like this. But nowadays, something like this comes out and kids actually would be able to handle it because they're at least better at these things because, well, they play computer games way more and whatnot.
Or they just totally hated it and thought it was too clunky and not that interesting. However, Dragon's Dogma 2 seems to make the formula much more accessible, and one of the interesting ways that we know this is that IGN, to their credit, sent Destin, somebody who, by his own testimony, only has a paltry 70 minutes of game time in the original Dragon's Dogma. So somebody that tried it, it just wasn't for them. And he went to try this preview event and play the game for 3 hours and absolutely loved it.
This looks like an IGN video because of the white and red stuff. That's typically how they make their stuff.
It turned him into a convert. And that's what I like to hear, that even for outsiders...
Hit the child!
The game is winning them over. Because in case you're not aware, like how these preview events always work is that these journalists are usually sent based...
Did he fall? I'm not sure he did a falling attack. Did he fall?
Based on their previous resume of games that they've covered or games that they enjoy. Which makes sense. If you're the head honcho over at IGN, why would you send somebody who loves Mario games exclusively to a preview event for the new Elden Ring DLC? It just wouldn't make any sense, and they probably wouldn't have that much constructive feedback when all was said and done, since it's just frankly not.
The constructive feedback argument in this case, I don't think it's relevant, because, hey, don't you want actually to know feedback from people who have never played games like this before? Don't you want to actually see what Mario fans have to say about the game? Because maybe there's something really simple you can do to make Elden Ring easy to access and understand for like Mario fans or other people who play dress-up Barbie games and stuff like that. I would think that's valuable feedback.
Not the kind of game they would typically play or enjoy. And so what inevitably happens is that at these preview events, you get sort of a skewed narrative. It's why you can have a bunch of journalists go to a preview event for something like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and have mixed opinions or even positive opinions before the game.
Mixed opinions. No, Suicide Squad was bad. Game journalists are trash existences that should not deserve bread and water. It should be removed from them because they are making my world worse and I don't like it.
Game releases to overwhelmingly negative fanfare. Can you...
Every games journalist is a failed basic journalist who didn't make it to CNN.
You say negative fanfare? Is it still fanfare? If it's negative, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that makes sense. Never mind. But you get the point. You get what I'm trying to say. When you have a bunch of people that like looter shooters going to try a looter shooter, they're more likely to enjoy that than somebody who doesn't play those types of games. Makes sense. Easy peasy, not rocket science. And often for sequels, you're going to end up with journalists going to try the sequel early who really enjoyed or at least had a lot of experience with the original. And while I think that's a useful way of doing things and it makes sense because you're trying to win fans over to the new game, I do think it's useful to also put somebody out there to try the game who doesn't have a lot of experience in the franchise so that they can represent a perspective that might be valuable to somebody who doesn't have experience with the franchise either. For me, I'm looking at this as somebody that didn't really connect with the first game either. And so seeing that somebody who didn't connect with the first game really enjoy the second game gets me all the more excited. It's another reason why having different perspectives review games and discuss them can be really, really helpful to the everyday consumer. And I also think it's worth acknowledging that it's useful when a journalist doesn't just pretend like they've experienced everything and they know everything, but when they can just be upfront and like, hey, I haven't played the previous games, or I tried the previous games, I didn't really enjoy them. Here's my perspective. Now that you know my background with this franchise, with this genre, whatever, now...
These games are so far apart, I don't think it honestly even matters. Do they have experience with the old games or not at this point? And too much time has passed. Too many people have probably switched positions and are no longer there. Who cares?
How that can inform your interpretation of my article I'm writing or of the video that I've made. It's why I try really hard when I'm talking about these games to make my biases and prior experiences very, very clear for everybody, just so there's no question at all. So all told, I'm very happy to say that the game seems to be very welcoming to new players in a way that doesn't dumb down the experience. The game is still, by all reports, quite difficult and
Jeez, did he just do more than half of the troll's life instantaneously with just a lightning strike spell blade? Oof.
challenging, and there's a lot of content here for new players and old. Now, one of the most interesting things about the game for me has been that they are taking some very somewhat novel approaches to the game's design. They are unapologetic and bold in some of these design choices. For one,
haven't heard about any of this except the fact that there's not gonna be fast travel.
They have
bold, dude. Is he gonna say not having quest markers is a bold choice? If not having fast travel, a bold choice indeed, sir.
Largely avoided fast travel. There are some cases where you can pay to directly travel to another town, kind of like on the back of a wagon, but that's pretty rare. Almost all of the time when you are navigating the world in Dragon's Dogma 2, you are going to be running on foot. And this got a lot of people a little freaked out because they immediately started thinking of other open world.
I don't understand how people would think that. They have came out and explicitly said that it's not going to be anything like this. There's going to be it's going to be like running around in Fallout 3 or New Vegas, or even 76 for that matter, honestly, or 4, you know? You're always going to notice something on the way, and it's going to be interesting, and, you know, that something is going to lead you there, and, you know, all of that good stuff. So, I don't know why people are actually so afraid of the idea that they're gonna have to travel on foot. Man, come on. Do you travel on foot most of the time in Elden Ring, or do you just fast travel everywhere? There's your answer.
Games where running on foot might lead to very boring or prolonged periods of nothing interesting happening. But this is kind of the magic of a design choice like this. If you establish early on in development, there's not going to be a lot of fast travel. There's not going to be super fast mounts or anything. You're going to run around on foot. When you establish that clearly early on, you are freed to design the world, assuming and knowing.
I don't know about the idea that you are free to do any of that stuff, but you know, they have said everything that needs to be said about traveling in the world, and also about the HP that you receive, a total minus of until you rest in a town, and all of that good stuff. I mean, okay, I currently have only one major complaint about Dragon's Dogma 2, and that is that the world is poorly built. Okay, I have talked about this many of a time, but okay, listen. In Dragon's Dogma 2, a world where giant griffins can swoop in from the sky and just eat a person no problem, where trolls and all of these things exist. The idea that something like a just basic village without walls exists on its own is just mind-bogglingly non-possible. In a world like that, villages would have walls 10 meters high so nothing can get past them, okay? They would have, scorpions on every single tower, okay? It would not be even close to what we actually see the world looks like. It looks nice, and the villages look, medieval-ish town-esque. True, I like that, but if the world was built better, it would be so much better.
Knowing that players will be traveling on foot, and that means that interesting things can be placed more dynamically and densely in the world because they know that you're going to be traveling on foot. It means that they can design cool little puzzles and alcoves and caves and stuff into the mountainside because they know you're going to be going through there on foot slowly enough that you'll notice it. Whereas if you were on a super fast mount, or if you were fast traveling by, you might not have ever noticed it. And this is why I think some of the best games in terms of open world design click with some players so incredibly deeply. And that is because when you have a game that is so confident in its layout and design, it also leads to a situation where developers are trusting the players to explore and create meaningful discoveries and moments for themselves. It's the difference between that Ubisoft style of open world design where they just flood the map with little collectibles and things to pick up.
Bro, this is so bad. Look at this.
Because they think if they don't do that, players will just be bored because there won't.
Dude, what is this? A horse or a car? Honestly, it feels like he's... Dude, Did anyone get the impression that he's on a horse or is he on a cart?
World design where they just flood the map with little collectibles and things to pick up because they think if they
Oh my god, how do Ubisoft fans even exist at this point?
they don't do that, players will just be bored
Sad.
because there won't be stuff. So they have to like hold your hand as you
The blood splattered there. Wow.
explore
Okay.
the world by being like, ooh, piece of candy, piece of candy, piece of candy. But with games like this, it
Jeez.
seems like they're taking an approach
That's so
to just
bad.
trust the player, open the doors out into the world and say, go crazy, run around, find cool stuff. And that's made all the more clear with another thing that's been revealed in the last month or two. And that's with the Sphinx. The Sphinx
mommy.
is a sort of
You can marry her. Or, you know, at least attempt impregnation.
monstrous character you can find in Dragon's Dogma 2, but emphasis on can. They've made it very clear there will be many players who go through the entirety of Dragon's Dogma 2 and never discover the Sphinx.
Yeah.
They won't ever find her.
It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. There are people who... There are so many groups of people and not a lot of them actually, like... well, actually, there are a decent amount of people who do find them, but there are a lot of who don't, okay? There are people who just Google every boss in Dark Souls and just, you know, then go to them systematically one by one, and they don't even care about the exploration. There are people who literally explore every nook and cranny of the game. There are people who just see where the wind takes them, and that's, by the way, me. That's why I can replay Fallout New Vegas so many times. After all this time playing it, I still think there's probably a couple of locations that I have never been to. Just because, you know, the wind never takes me there. I start walking in that direction, well, you know what I see? Something. I don't know. But that does have a negative side. Fallout 76. Yeah, I went in the exactly wrong direction to the higher difficulty place that I was supposed to be when the game launched. Not to mention a buggy, messy shit show, but, you know, I still managed to completely skip the tutorial, didn't know how to drop my camp for 2 days, and, yeah, completely wrong place, wrong time, because, ooh, look at that right there, and then I'd go off the beat-out path.
It will take a lot of know-how, careful evaluation, it will take puzzle-solving skills and things in order to find
Nice.
her. And it will take even more know-how and wit and intelligence to be able to get the rewards and things.
She's gonna be at the side of the map. She's gonna be at the further edge of one side of the map.
That you can win as a result of solving the riddles that she presents players. And that to me, I don't know, it's so cool that
Does the human seed work on a Sphinx? Who knows?
they're, for one, confident enough in the amount of content in the
Actually, that's not a riddle. That's honestly kind of a science.
game, but they can have something like this that's really epic and cool that some players will just never see, never encounter in their entire run, simply because it's hidden that well, and they trust players to find it. And that's also something that's doubly interesting to me, simply that they're
Nice.
willing to hide this thing in
By the way, YouTube doesn't like this. It thinks that this is a halal. It is what it is.
the game because they're
Actually, no, haram.
confident enough in the way the game is designed and the world is built that they know players will be able to find it if they look hard enough and are dedicated enough. Now, on the flip side, this could be total
I mean, do you think it's an accident all of this happened? Do you think this is an accident? She's like looking, I know what you're up to, and
game
he's
is
like,
designed and
I'm not doing
world is
anything.
built that
Goes around instantaneously, just lunges, boys, okay? I think we all know what's happening here.
they know players
That's why she doesn't become aggressive, she just shoos him off.
will be able to
Look at this.
find it if they look
Yeah, it's not her first time, okay?
hard enough and are
It is what it
dedicated
is.
enough. Now, on the flip side, this could be total BS and crap. It could be like, oh yeah, you have to go to this cliff edge and then put in a 15-digit series of ups and downs on the D-pad, and then it'll open up a portal and then you end up there. How you would know how to do that, I don't know, but you'll figure it out. That could suck, and I wouldn't love that. But if it is something where it's just a matter of cunning and wit and perception, and if you're always aware and you know kind of where to look
Always aware.
for interesting things
Okay.
in the landscape and stuff, this could be super, super cool. And now the entire time that I'm
I mean, don't take his words too seriously, okay? There's gonna be very blatantly things that are out in the open, and, you know, even a blind man is gonna see them. And there are things that are gonna be a little bit more hidden. And by that I mean a lot more hidden, probably. So, it's gonna be for everyone.
I'm playing Dragon's Dogma 2 when the game launches, I'm going to be looking around every cliff face, every rock, really being hyper aware of everything around me to see if I can stumble onto the Sphinx. And you better believe, if I do stumble on that Sphinx, it's going to be a rush of dopamine unlike any other, because I will know I overcame a great challenge that other players will not be able to overcome. And that,
I mean, being a little bit dramatic right here.
I think, is the magic of confident game design, and game design that's not trying to be everything to everybody, that's not trying to hold everybody's hand to the extent where everybody's going to have the same cookie cutter experience and go through the same series of experiences over and over and over again. They're like, yeah, some players won't find this. Yeah. Sucks to suck, I guess. I just find that badass. Another interesting revelation and very bold design choice was that the game will only feature one save file. And
this is not interesting. This is not a bold design choice, honestly. I think they will, you know, not fix it, but patch it up so, you know, there's going to be different save files. But the fact is, you can change classes anytime you want in this game. It's not gonna be a challenge. You just go and change them any moment that you want in a town, and it's absolutely all fine and dandy. So, you know, if you want to be a different class, you just switch to that class. So there's technically, since there is no hard lock on what your character is gonna be like, you don't have to have multiple save files, technically. But admittedly, there is a bad part to this, in my opinion, and that is the fact that, okay, yeah, I want to be a warrior, because I have low IQ, obviously. And then you go become a warrior. And you finish, you kill the bosses, you do these things as a warrior, and you're like, okay, this is my experience with a warrior. But then the problem is, okay, I'm done being a warrior. Now I want to be a mage. And the problem is, well, I now am a mage, but I can't do the bosses again. So that's the reason why they're gonna implement it, that you can have multiple save files. Yeah, switching between classes at free will is kind of neat and whatnot, but you can't, in a game like this, it's all about killing bosses. So, me being a warrior switching to a mage does not allow me in my mind to say, yeah, I just won that boss as a mage. No, I do not possess that experience. I want that experience. And if they do not allow you to have multiple save files, people are just gonna either delete their save files or get some kind of mod that allows multiple save files. There is just absolutely no other way, okay? It's not even close. So let's skip that part, huh?
And other questions, such as the scope and scale of the world and gameplay time, have also been answered as...
Okay, yeah, it's giant. It's hard to say how actually large it is, but it is really giant. It's triple the size of the previous one. Anyway, that was Luke Steffens. Yay! Anyway, this was Quizzer7. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.